This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh, look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream, the stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day. Let's try that again. Because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. I still got my Invisalign things in. Takes a while to get used to them again. I haven't been wearing them for a while, and this is my last try. I talked about this before. Having plastic things in your teeth. I mean, they are crafted to this point to be practically seamless against your teeth, but the key word is practically. So your mouth is still expecting certain things to be in certain places, and then your tongue hits the wrong spot and so please forgive me. I know not what I do. Please forgive me. I've got stuff on my teeth. Anyway, everyone, good morning. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. I mean, it's got a gray and blah out right now, but I'm sure it'll be beautiful later. I'm sure the beauty is on its way. But that being said, before I get into today's topic, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning for a beautiful Sunday show? Kiever Dam, good morning. Mike R., good morning. Noah Asensio, good morning. Matt Barnes, good morning. Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. Fun Time Bats, good morning. Kiro Soldier, good morning. The One Ton Hammer, good morning. Shadow Claw, good morning. TF Theorix, good morning. Resolute Germ, good morning. And then chat jumped because, of course, it did. Ryan R., good morning. Vader 35, good morning. Ercole Di Stefano, good morning. Ostsan, good morning. Rotten Corpse, good morning. And for anybody that I missed, I don't think I did, in the chat at least, or anybody lurking or anybody in the future, good morning. Now, before I begin, I need to direct your attention up top of the chat box. There's a new GoFundMe up there. Friend of the show, friend of the channel, friend of Lords of the Night from long, long ago, Grizilla, a comic book artist, someone who has done custom fan art for myself, Satsu 2 Cents, Ranting Monkey, made an entire comic book for Lords of the Night, and just an overall talented and great guy. Unfortunately, his girlfriend passed away the other day. And they are in need of help in arranging for funeral services and paying for all of the things that need to be paid for when such an occurrence happens. So if you take a look at that first link at the top of the chat box, and as well as the link afterwards for Maddie, who was recently diagnosed with cancer and needs some help with some deductibles. And lastly, on there, Angry Illinoisian, who needs some help after workers' comp would not cover all the necessities after an injury. But certainly, at least for the immediacy, if you take a look at Grizz's up there. Either way, if you can donate to any of them, please do so. If you can't, that's fine, but please do share those out on social media. It does help out a lot, and I appreciate it, and I know that they do too. So thank you for that before we begin. But what are we talking about today? Well, see, there's a little bit of a history here, sort of, tangentially, that I need to go over for those of you that might be new to the channel, or at least so new that you weren't around when I first started my channel. A long, long time ago, I can still remember a little thing called the Boom Experience. Early in the years of my channel, I came across, and it's a convoluted pathway of how I got there. I have a little playlist on my channel called Down the Rabbit Hole, and I believe I created that before the now much, much more popular series by Frederick Knudsen. But either way, a very circuitous route of videos and personalities led me to a thing called the Boom Experience, which is purportedly an educational event that yearly takes place in the Bellevue School District in Washington State. And this little event was curiously segregated by race and sex. Specifically, if you weren't white and you weren't a female, you were not invited to this thing put on by a public school district. It was a very interesting little thing I came across. A minor story in my litany of subject matter on my channel. But either way, for a brief while, I was something of a, I don't know, investigative reporter or something in my own mind. Anyway, so ever since then, the goings on in Washington state, both educational, legal, and otherwise, have been of a curiosity to me. And this is just one more example. I came across this the other day. I believe this took place, October 26th. So it's not that long ago. This is a webinar involving several different individuals from several different aspects of education in Washington state. And the subject is one that I'm always curious about: advancing educator diversity in school districts and school buildings. And if we know what diversity means, we know that we're talking race, gender, orientation, or a combination thereof. So how do you advance these non-determinative elements to exist within your school district and or school buildings across an entire state? What kind of policies would you have to enact? What kind of hiring decisions would you have to make this happen? I can only guess. Now, the one thing that I am curious about, I haven't watched this yet, as with all things, I only know the title. The one thing I am curious about, is the argument going to be made, as I have heard many times, that if a student is taught by a teacher who looks like them, they have a better educational outcome? That's because I've heard that over and over again. And there is as far as I'm concerned, an unavoidable, pragmatic pathway that you must take if that statement of certitude is made. I'll get to that if they get to that. Otherwise, I'm just talking nothing. So we'll get to that momentarily. A couple more hellos. You're ridiculous lunatic. Good morning. Roan Hirishin. Good morning. And I think that's all the newcomers I see. So with that, this one clocks in at just slightly over 1 hour. I will go for an hour and a half in real time unless there is some reason to continue otherwise. At some point, we get a Brady Bunch arrangement of Zoom calls. So, sound quality, mileage may vary from speaker to speaker. I have attempted to boost the audio a bit, so it should be as good as I can get it. And we'll go from there. So let's begin with advancing Washington state educator diversity in school districts and school buildings, October 26th, 2023.
Hello, I'm Eric Corman, Interim Co-CEO and Communications Director at League of Education Voters.
Interim Co-CEO, League of Education Voters. Okay. Sounds good to me.
And the parent of a high school freshman of the global majority in the public school system who is accessing special education services.
The global majority. What is the global majority? Is that what?
This webinar features closed captions. To access captioning, just click on the live trans.
Okay. Can we get to the thing? Okay, we got some instructions. I'm going to skip over this stuff until we get to the actual. Okay.
Will monitor throughout the webinar. In case you're not familiar with us, League of Education Voters is a statewide nonprofit working with families, educators, and leaders to build a brighter future for every Washington student.
Well, that sounds perfectly fine. I guess it all depends. How do you propose to get there?
Our website is educationvoters.org.
Uh-huh.
We believe that education is a tool for justice.
Mm-hmm.
One of the systems that perpetuate.
No. Education is a tool for knowledge. Knowledge. Justice? Ay, caramba.
Racial injustice experienced by global majority communities is our schools.
Global majority. Okay, maybe, okay. I've been doing this a while now. What do we mean by global majority?
We believe every child deserves an excellent public education that provides equitable opportunities for success.
Then why are you divvying things up by majorities?
In order to achieve this, we must pursue radical change in our school systems for equity, justice, and liberation.
Equity, justice, and liberation. Okay, no diversity?
We must build schools and systems that honor the humanity in every student.
Because, as we know, school systems look at students as inhuman little monsters. Well, I mean, they kind of are. Did you ever go to school? You ever see what students do to each other? Kids? Okay.
Welcome to our free online webinar series,
Yay.
Lunchtime Webinars. We started this series 10 years ago to share information and build knowledge on important and timely issues. Today's webinar is about advancing Washington State educator diversity in school districts and school buildings.
I already said that. That's being repetitive.
There is a significant disparity between the diversity of Washington students and educators.
Let me guess. Some outsized proportion of educators are white, and the overall population demographics of the student body statewide are not as white. Is that it? I'm just guessing.
BIPOC youth make up nearly half of our student population, while nearly 90% of our teachers and education leaders are white.
Oh my God, what an injustice. How shall we solve for this problem?
Studies show that BIPOC students who are exposed to teachers who reflect their race and ethnicity have higher graduation rates.
I knew it! And I'm not claiming psychic powers. All right. So, I'm probably going to repeat this more than once over the course of this thing. I just can't help myself. But all right. If it is the case that a student has an ultimately better educational outcome if they are taught by a teacher who looks like them, then the most effective way to educate students is racial segregation in schools. Like shall only teach like. I mean, if that is true, why wouldn't you want to do that? Am I wrong? I don't know. Seeing a couple comments in the chat here. Bridget, Scribelight. Global majority is an interesting term because the global majority is Asian, but they are using it to lump all non-Europeans in one category. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they do mean Asian. Like I have a high school student in the global majority. Maybe. I don't know. Roan Harushan, my wife and I have issues with kids bullying our daughter. Hell, one kid threatened to blackmail her if she told on him. Yeah, kids are monsters. Little running, little engines of emotions, unregulated, running around all the time. If they don't have supervision, they can turn into, doesn't matter what they look like. That's just children, unsupervised children. But anyway, okay. Yes, so students learn better if their teacher looks like them or is not white specifically.
And when more of the adults in school reflect the communities they serve, it also creates deeper, more authentic school community partnerships that have the power to transform schools in ways that dismantle racism and benefit from the wisdom and vision of families.
Dismantle racism, huh? You've got a problem with a teacher being white. Dismantle racism. Okay.
In this webinar, we will discuss why we need to attract and retain educators of color, what we can do to position educators of color for success, and how we can work together at the school district and school building level to support and sustain an education workforce that is diverse in Washington State.
Boy, that grin on his face is so assuring when he's like, how can we ensure we have the right color people in education? Because there are wrong colored people in education.
And now I would like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with our students.
Oh, there are students here? Okay.
Yeah, Wyatt, go right ahead, and then feel free to pass to one of the adults.
Hi, my name is Wyatt Santucci. I'm a junior at Massapequa High School, as well as I'm a part of LIAC, a Legislative Youth Advisory Council. We're a council made up of 26 members who work directly with the legislature under the division of the Lieutenant Governor.
Wyatt, I hate to tell you, you should not be the one representing your group. There's something inherently wrong, as our first speaker just told us, if you're the one representing your group. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to think like that, right? No, I am supposed to think like that? I don't know. I'm getting mixed messages here. Pass it to one of the adults, Wyatt. Follow instructions, Wyatt.
Hi, my name is Vindia Adamola. I'm a junior from Olympia High School. I'm also part of LIAC, and I'm a part specifically of the Legislative Affairs Council, which is like LIAC is pretty much split into two kind of subsections, and people work in both like the public affairs and the legislative affairs section. So I work specifically in the legislative affairs, and I focus on like working with legislators directly and like doing bill research and things like that.
Okay.
I'll pass it on to Mary Beth.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Beth Canty. I work for the Seattle Teacher Residency. I have been part of the education and teacher preparation programs for over 20 years.
I wonder if we have any like actually currently situated teachers on this panel, or if it's all just sort of like people working in periphery to education.
In Washington State, and I'm thrilled to be in conversation with you all today.
All right, who would you like to pass it to?
Sorry, I would love to pass it on to Justin.
How about moderator guy? You just call on people. How about you just do that? Or is that too authoritative on your part? Would that be too patriarchal or something?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Hendrickson. I'm the proud principal here at South Shore Pre-K 8.
Oh, a principal. And boy, he's got a good voice. He's got a good like radio voice right there.
In the Rainier Beach, Southeast Seattle neighborhood of Seattle. We are a school that serves almost 90% students of color.
And that means what?
And we've been working really hard over the years to diversify our educators here.
By what methods?
South Shore, and also create pipelines for specifically classified and even students to find a way into Seattle schools and give back to the communities that they love and that they want to serve. And I'm going to pass it over to Larry.
Good afternoon, everybody. Larry Kisano, former principal. Now I'm the Director of Recruitment, Retention, and Workforce Diversity here in Spokane Public Schools.
Oh, good. A person in charge of hiring. All right.
Really getting into the work to ensure that we get closer to aligning what our student demographics are with our staff that's in front of our kids, servicing them every single day.
And yeah, I know I'm a broken record. How do you achieve that goal without racial discrimination in hiring?
So I will pass it on to Sung Kim.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sung. I am relatively new at TAF, the Technology Access Foundation. I'm the new director for the Network for EdWork, which actually does our mission. All our work is really related to the title of this webinar. It's really about supporting more educators of color across Washington State.
So excluding anybody who doesn't fall within that racial framework. Okay.
And sustaining that population and growing that population to look more like the student bodies.
To look more like the student. Okay. How creepy is this? How creepy is this? We have to make the students, although the teachers look more like the student bodies. Like, Oh, and Advocatus Diaboli. I can actually answer this one. The Network for EdWork? No, EdWork, education work. They shorten education down to ed. You're ridiculous. Ways to get sued in 4, 3, 2. You would hope. You would hope. The problem is that nobody faces any consequences for this. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but like I said, I wasn't psychic when I started bringing up the whole students who see their teachers who look like them have better outcomes. these same arguments, these same rationales have been voiced by school district after school district, educator after educator for at least, in my brief experience with it, 7 years. And what consequences befall any of them? Any lawsuits? Any restrictions? Any firings? Any investigations? Maybe they do occur. I don't know. But if they do, they are kept so under wraps that it doesn't affect anybody else's thoughts ahead of trying to implement similar policies across the country. So you would think someone would ask some questions about this kind of initiative, but especially after affirmative action. I mean, if there was any sort of like mystic chords of justification you could draw from affirmative action being upheld for so long into things like this, that's gone now. You don't even have that to stand on. So that's why it's even more bewildering to me now than it was maybe a year or 2 years ago.
And my background's mostly in the national nonprofit, education nonprofit space. So I'm here as part of this panel to share a bit more about the Network for EdWork, but also to learn and become part of this community. Very excited to meet you all.
Okay.
Dr. Marissa?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Dr. Marissa Windmill, and I'm the proud teacher of my students here, multilingual students at Kent Meridian High School. I previously served as a board member for our Professional Educator Standards Board, and I have been really engaged in diversifying our educator workforce.
In what way? How so? I really want to hear some specifics on what they do to diversify their educator workforce.
I'm a member of the ECLC at the Puget Sound ESD, Educators of Color Leadership Community.
Oh.
I'm also part of our national board's candidates cadre, so I support our candidates who are multilingual as well.
Oh, so if I'm monolingual, I don't deserve your support? Okay.
And I'm a TPEP trainer for our WAA, for our Washington Education Association, and on top of other things that I do to serve our students and community who are BIPOC.
But anybody else can just, they're on their own, based on their race. Okay.
And I would like to add that my dissertation is actually BIPOC, about the perspectives of our BIPOC women leaders in our state.
Oh, okay. Perspectives of BIPOC women leaders. Okay.
It's really, there's big disparities. So I'm excited about this conversation.
Wonderful. And Dr. Windmill, I understand that your students are right there in your classroom with you. So if there's some background noise, that could be why. Wonderful. Well, today, I really appreciate all of you being here. I'm so excited. To begin today's webinar, I would like to acknowledge that we're on the ancestral and unceded traditional lands of the 29 federally recognized and non-federally recognized tribes in Washington State.
Oh, a land acknowledgement. You know, I've been asking about this for like the last 2 or 3 streams or something. I always love when we get to a land acknowledgement. So leave. It's not yours, right? Get out. I mean, are you gloating?
Including the Chehalis, Chinook, Colville, Cowlitz, Ho, Jamestown Sklallam, Kalispell, Lower Elwha Clallam, Lummi, Macaw, Muckleshoot, Nisqually, Nooksack, Port Gamble Sklallam, Puyallup, Quileute, Quinault, Samish, Soxweattle, Shoalwater Bay, Skokomish, Snoqualmie, Spokane,
and a partridge in a pear tree. Oh, wait.
Squaxin Island, Stillaguamish, Suquamish, Swinomish, Tulalip, Upper Skagit, and Yakima.
Good gravy. And which one of these do you belong to? So why are you there? I know it's not their intent necessarily, but when somebody stops for a second and starts listing off all the people that used to possess the land you're on, and you're doing it out of respect on the one hand, at the same time, I kind of go like, well, again, you're not them. So this kind of sounds like going neener, neener.
We give thanks to elders, both past and present, our native and indigenous colleagues, and the land itself.
The land, yeah. I'm still living here. I'm not moving.
A couple of housekeeping items before we begin. You'll notice a Q&A function at the bottom of.
Okay, I don't care about the Q&A stuff. Let's skip a couple minutes here.
Discussion wraps up. As always, feel free to.
No.
To check in and comment on anything.
No.
Today. Why is educator diversity important?
Okay.
Why do educators of color, especially Black educators, leave the profession at higher rates than white educators? What policy, practice, or cultural shifts in school districts and school buildings could work and have worked to better attract and retain educators of color?
All right, that's the one that I'm most interested in. Yeah, what policies have worked or have been attempted? What exactly are they doing to solve for this problem? Or at least, what are they willing to admit in public that they've attempted to do to solve this problem? Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. It's my tribe's name. All right, where's my reparations? Hey, he's apparently sitting on your land. Go tell him to get off the land. I had to put that part at the end, or else it would sound a little off. But anyway, thank you, Johnny Hellcat. He's admitted that he's, taken over somebody else's property, but he seems to be perfectly fine with it. Okay.
And how we can work together to support and sustain a diverse education workforce in Washington State.
Okay.
I'd like to start with our first question, and let's open it up to everyone.
Okay.
Why is educator diversity important?
Why is educator diversity important? Let's see. Well, you already told us students have better outcomes when they have a teacher who looks like them. And you benefit from multiple perspectives, because if you have an education system that is completely homogeneous in its perspective, then you only learn one way to look at the world. And people with different skin colors obviously have different perspectives on the world, because skin color imparts a particular way of thinking one to another. I'm just spitballing here. You have to call on somebody. For crying out loud, be a better moderator. No one is going to speak first. No one wants to be that person. Call on someone. Just don't open it up to everybody. Come on.
I can start off.
Yeah, thank goodness.
So I think educator diversity is important overall because it just helps teachers better connect with students. I know personally, as a person of color, I felt really disconnected from a lot of my students because we have no educators at Olympia High School that are people of color. So I often felt like I was separated. And even though I know they didn't have any intention of there being like that separation, it just kind of felt like something that was happening subconsciously.
So it's a you problem. You are uncomfortable around people who don't look like you. Okay.
And I just felt like I wasn't being very represented through the work. And so I was just kind of like another person in the back, just doing my work. And
you are just another person. Your skin color does not make you special. You weren't being represented, so you need to be serviced specially because of your skin color. You want to take that sentiment forward and flip the script a little bit. And what if you were a blonde-haired white boy saying that? Does that sound reasonable if you think of it from that perspective?
I didn't feel like I got to have that personal connection with the teacher.
A personal connection. Wait. Sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting. I have to occasionally interrupt, but sometimes I try to keep it a little spaced out. What does your skin color or someone else's skin color tell you about that person? What personality trait is amplified or broadcast on the basis of someone's skin color? And if you have an answer for that question, you know, there might be something else going on here.
And so that kind of separated me and like just made me feel like I wasn't the best student I could be.
That is a you problem if you're associating race with it. Okay. I know, sorry.
And I just think that a lot of students like myself felt that way. And so just like from a personal point of view, I think it's just really important to have educators of color just to form like that personal connection, because that can just better improve your whole entire experience, both personally and educationally.
Right. So you cannot personally connect with someone who does not share your skin tone. Okay. And you benefit more so from people who share your skin tone rather than people who don't. Okay. You're the moderator. Call on somebody. Nobody wants to be, come on.
Well, I can jump in after that, Vindhya. That was absolutely 100% the perspective that I also take.
Oh, good.
And I would like to add that as we talk about justice and education as being the center of how we can work toward justice and equity, not having the perspective and the voices of those who have typically been marginalized by the institution of education is a huge loss for us all.
So the education system benefits by somebody coming in with a victimhood complex, the voice of one who has been marginalized. What does that have to do with the quality of education? I'm asking the question rhetorically, but I don't know the answer to it. Like, okay.
I think I would say in a social emotional aspect to what you were getting at towards Vindhya, having BIPOC teachers is critical, but also in terms of disrupting all of the opportunities, disrupting the injustice and affording more opportunities for our students and families is critical that we achieve closer to parity for our communities of color.
Closer to parity, open up opportunity. Okay. I know I'm probably not going to get an answer to this. All right. So what opportunities are opened on the basis of this or closed? I mean, obviously the reverse must be true as well. What opportunities are open or closed to students on the basis of the skin color of the teacher? I'm more and more questions abound here. Next, pass it on to somebody. Something.
I can jump in next.
Yes, okay.
So I think educator diversity is really important because it can like foster a sense of belonging, and it gives an environment to staff and students where they feel safe, like, and included.
Well, what if the teacher doesn't look like you? Right. I mean, what if specifically an initiative is taken to make sure all the teachers or most of the teachers don't look like you, and in fact, people who look like you are effectively vilified as a problem? I mean, that's what our speaker, our initial moderator here effectively said. There are too many of the wrong looking people in education. And you, current speaker student, fall within that demographic. Do you feel included in that sense?
And yeah, I just...
Okay, that was great. Thanks for that. Let's see. It's going to come up here in the chat in a second. Come on, update. There we go. Johnny Hillcat, thank you again. If they felt this, why not hire them sooner? I don't know. It's all about feelings. I feel unseen. I feel uncentered. I feel this. I feel that. Except that in order to satisfy those feelings, you have to take real-world actions, which means discriminating against people on the basis of their skin color or in favor of people. So. Pass it on. Good gravy. Come on.
Anyone else have anything you'd like to add?
Just call on the people. I swear, moderator snob here.
Sure. big plus one to everything Vinny, Mary Beth, and Wyatt said, for sure. And also what you mentioned earlier, Eric, around the numbers, right? Like the data is there. And
the numbers. The data is there. Okay.
And supports the importance of educator diversity. If I were to kind of, go to the 10,000 foot view, if you will, it's like, what is education?
I don't know. What is education?
Right? Education, and when we're talking about what we're learning, it's all within a cultural context.
It's all within a cultural context. Explain.
And the cultural context is always going to be different depending on who is delivering that learning or who is leading the learning in a classroom.
Oh, so obviously skin color determines culture. Is that where this is headed?
And that cultural context, language is important.
Yes, language is important.
Understanding what the breadth of culture is.
The breadth of culture. Okay.
Having experienced kind of the cultural dissonance that so many people of color experience.
Right. So if you're not white, you understand the breadth of culture. Huh. All right.
Across this country.
Across this country. Oh, so someone from Washington State has an understanding of the breadth of culture from Florida or Arkansas or Maine or Texas just because of their skin color? Oh, okay.
Speaking as a daughter of immigrants and looking the way I do, and growing up in when I was growing up in very majority white spaces, it was shocking within the school system to lose a sense of identity.
Lose a sense of identity because your teachers didn't look like you?
Sometimes this is probably something that many folks of color or second generation of immigrants can relate to. But I remember when I was a young child, sometimes walking by windows or walking by mirrors and having to do a double take because I forgot what I looked like.
You forgot what you looked like. All right. So in the absence of seeing people around you who resemble you in race and or ethnicity, you lack a living mirror for your own sense of identity. I might recommend some kind of therapy for that one.
And the teachers around me and the students around me didn't look like me, and I forgot about that.
So in order to resolve your personal identity issues or whatever, I don't even know what you'd call that, some kind of like identity aphasia or something, you need to populate the school with people who look like you, first and foremost, in order to satisfy your identity problems. Okay. Again, if our speaker here was a blonde white guy and said the exact same thing, what do you think the reaction of the people on this panel would be?
I think one of the first times I had an educator of color who has a different speaking cadence.
Wait. An educator? No. It can't be an educator of color. It can't be that generalized. It has to be an Asian educator, right? Otherwise, you're not going to see yourself. You're going to lose all sense of who you are. It can't be just somebody who's not white. it has to be specifically your ethnicity, right? You just told us you didn't see anybody who looks like you. So wait. Can't generalize here.
Who has a different cultural context.
Okay, so all white people have the same cultural context, right? Okay, so in my old neighborhood, when you've got my family who are like, an amalgam of people from different parts of the country, and all end up in California. And then you've got my neighbors who were, I'd say their last name to get to clarify this point. But either way, they were white, but they were from Poland. And they had accents, and they had a completely different way of looking. I mean, we're both white families. If you just looked at us and knew nothing else about us, because who cares about what else happens with people outside of their skin color? Two white families, culturally, 100% different in language, in custom, in everything. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So keep going. Whatever.
The immediate almost kinship of understanding.
Right. If you see someone who's not white, you know that they're part of what? Your personal comfort zone?
That happened in that space was really powerful.
Sure.
And it didn't happen until adulthood.
Until adulthood. You went your entire life not being in the same room with somebody who wasn't white? What?
Which is a statement in and of itself. So.
It is a statement in and of itself. It's a statement of you having a problem with people depending on their race. Okay, this is your show.
Just real quick. I mean, it's so amazing, especially hearing from our young people and not being too far away from being in buildings. I think what we have to understand is when you listen to our kids, especially our students of color,
especially our students of, because certain opinions have more value than others.
There's this kind of deep longing for being seen.
Being seen. Is that what that is?
And having connection. And I think when you speak to diversifying the teaching workforce, the educator workforce, because we have incredible paras and support staff as well, and they can have an impact on our young people as well. So that connection piece, and we cannot underestimate the fact that having shared or similar lived experiences as an adult can translate into that stronger connection and bond with other kids as well.
So again, you see someone who looks like you know automatically that they've had similar experiences as you. You already have that connection. Just like I can look at any white person and know that they have similar experiences to me. I know they're exactly like me. They've gone through the exact same things. Because I just evaluate people first and foremost on their skin color. I don't need to ask any questions. There's no nuance. There's no curiosity. I don't have to guess. I can just make safe assumptions based on their skin color. Right. Okay. And if I said that as a white person, right, that I know what your experience is, I know the quality of your life on the basis of what you look like. I don't need to ask you any questions. I know which category to put you in. That's a good thing. Okay.
And just tapping on to what Larry said, there's that ability to just, I see you. And that goes from our youngest kids. We serve 3-year-olds all the way to 14-year-olds here at South Shore.
And when a kid who is not white looks at you, how do you resolve the problem and the trauma that they are experiencing when they forget what their face is? As the principal, I mean, how do you address this? How do you make sure you connect with students that obviously you can't connect with because you don't look like them? I mean, common humanity aside, because who cares about that? It's about the aesthetics. So how do you resolve that problem?
And specifically to not, as we said, not just our teachers, but our paras, our administrators, our folks in the front office, support staff, the opportunity for students to see a trajectory and possibly even a career in education.
Because obviously if they don't see someone who looks like them in a job, they can't possibly imagine themselves also having that job. It's just an insurmountable barrier, obviously.
Is something that I think we all want to strive to do better for. And shared lived experiences, and not only just someone who looks like you, but oftentimes someone who's from the same community as you, who've had similar experiences.
Okay, what do you mean by community? Because when I think of community, like I grew up in a neighborhood, right? Okay, I grew up in a suburban neighborhood, and it was made up of families of, honestly, all different stripes. Okay, and I thought of that neighborhood as a community, right? And we didn't all fall in the same demographics. We didn't all fall within the same belief systems, but we all lived within the same general area, and we all had a familiarity with each other. This is back in the 80s, back when neighbors talked to each other, back when neighborhoods were sort of like extended homes from your own. Oh, the good old days. Anyway, I think of that as a community. I'm always confused when people use the word community in this kind of context, because are you talking about like the neighborhood from which the kids are coming to go to the school, or are you talking about the demographic they happen to fall into one to another? I don't know which it is when they use the word anymore. So that's because the one suggests, yes, a shared experience. Everybody in my neighborhood, right? When lightning struck that tree down the street that one time, everybody in the neighborhood, everybody in the community had that shared experience of having to tend to a fire, or experiencing what it must have been like for their neighbor to have to deal with that kind of thing. That's a shared experience the community knows. And we can all sort of relate to that experience as a community. But when they say community here, I don't know. Are they talking about something that, sort of localized, or are they talking about presumptions about lived experiences based on demographic fit? I'm assuming the latter, because it's really the case that they're actually talking about the former, it seems.
Can help navigate spaces. And that also isn't just good for our students, but it's also good for our other educators who are not folks of color as well.
Oh, really? How?
And it helps build their skills.
How?
And helps them see how relationships are built. And
because without that, white people can't see how relationships are built.
And that all helps school culture, which all working together, we want students to be successful. And
but you're already divvying everybody up on value based on their skin color. Some people need more help than others. Some people are more valuable as educators than others. People do not benefit from mixing with other people. They have to see themselves. Are you listening to yourself?
There's that connection as well to families, because we've never, ever met a family that doesn't want their kid to be successful, regardless of what language they speak or where they're from. And so for many of us educators, schools that we serve in do not look like the schools that we went to as kids. The world has changed tremendously.
It hasn't changed that much, fundamentally.
Many of us grew up in times where there weren't cell phones as kids, where social media wasn't there. But some of the things that remain pretty doggone similar are classrooms. And that's something that, regardless of where we're from, what language we speak, we all share. And so there's an opportunity for us to collaborate and build collectively. And what better place than in a school community?
Collectively. Yeah. Okay. So why do you still hold your job as the pinnacle of authority at your school when you have the wrong skin color? Shouldn't someone else be in your position in order to show those kids that they too could be a principal someday? I mean, you said that your school 90% BIPOC, I believe, something to that effect, right? Or students of color. So the majority of the students in your school will never become a school principal because you're not the right color, right?
And Dr. Windmill, did you want to add anything?
Yeah.
Okay, no offense intended. Dr. Windmill sounds like an awesome villain for like a kid's book. Dr. Windmill.
Yes, can you all hear me well? Yes, thank you. I'm figuring out my tech here, but thank you for all your contributions. I totally get that. As an educator, I've been teaching this is my 31st year of teaching.
Wow.
In seeing our students of color, oh my goodness, you cannot be what you don't see.
You cannot be what you don't see. Right. So everybody's, I mean, this is anti-racism ideology, right? Racism is everywhere. So you can't be what you don't see. So if I don't see a white person doing a thing, I can't be that thing. So there's never been a female scientist or astronaut. There's never been a black baseball player, on and on, a professional baseball player, on and on and on and on, right? These things, this can't happen. Just can't happen. There's never been a non-white president. Just can't happen.
Our students need role models and mentors.
Yes.
And in my classroom, my students feel safe and welcome.
What if they're not of color? Do they feel welcome if they're not of color? Do they feel as valued if they're not of color, or if they only speak one language? I have to ask, you guys have set the table.
Because they can relate with me. They know what I went through, and I understand what they're going through.
Oh, you do? What if they don't look like you? What if the student is black? What if the student is white? What if the student is Native American? Well, then what happens? What happens then? If they can't see it, they can't be it. If they don't look like you, they can't be a teacher. And if they're not of the particular skin colors that you prefer, well, then they're a lesser person, right? They deserve less attention. They don't need as much attention. They already have representation. So in my classroom, I don't have to focus on them too much. Do you understand the implications of everything that is being said here? That you have said, that everybody on the panel has said? Is this how you want things to go? If the roles were reversed and you had a white person saying the same things you are, what would you think of that person? What would you think about the welfare of the children under that person's supervision?
And so having an adult in the building that they can relate with, and they can feel proud, that they feel supported, it's huge. Also having educators who look like me in my building can establish that rapport where we are stronger when we collaborate with them.
So you find unity in race, strength in race. Okay.
Our state is working on diversifying our educator workforce. We have CCDEI, we have the cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion standards. That
cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh my gosh, I'm hearing all my favorite phrases today.
We need to implement in our classroom. And so it's really important that we start really looking and intentionally doing what we say we're going to do.
Oh no, I believe you're intentionally doing this by divvying up the value of people on the basis of their race and saying so publicly. I believe in the intentionality of your process.
Because Justin mentioned about the only things that's constant is change. We are changing. We are getting influx of students from Afghanistan, from Ukraine, due to wars. So the human flow, we need to consider that.
What does that have to do with race? Ukraine and Afghanistan? So, okay, so how are you compensating for that? How do these practices help them? Do you need to find a Ukrainian person to be a teacher, or else those kids coming in can't see themselves having a future? Same thing with an Afghanistani kid. What do you, what has that got to do with anything?
How do we welcome our students?
How about welcome? Hello. Welcome to America. How about that? How do you welcome your students? What?
I think the best, our educator diversity is important, essential part of this diversity right now. Educators who would understand our students, who would welcome our students and understand them.
All right, so a non-Ukrainian, non-Afghanistani or Afghan teacher doesn't know how to welcome a student to their classroom? Are you talking about like a language barrier? Is that what you mean? What? Okay, so by that logic, you do not know how to welcome a student from the Ukraine or Afghanistan to your classroom. You just don't know. Because I'm assuming, I could be wrong, stranger things have happened. I'm assuming our speaker here is neither Ukrainian nor an Afghan. So, what?
Is really essential.
Uh-huh.
And there's more that I can share, but I know I would like to give the floor to others, or if you want to share more. But
you're so gracious.
Being a Filipino educator here in Washington, I know and I feel what needs to be done.
You know what needs to be done because you're Filipino. Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you all. Great discussion here. I really appreciate it.
It's not much of a discussion, but okay.
So let's move on to the second question, which is, why do educators of color, especially Black educators, leave the profession at higher rates than white educators?
Why aren't you asking Black educators or former educators? No one on this panel, as far as I can tell, is a Black educator. You've got students, you've got officials, you've got a principal, you got a tech person, and the one actual school teacher is Filipino, as she's very clearly told us. Why would you ask this panel that question? But okay. Call on someone. For crying out loud. Do I have a cricket sound effect? I should have a cricket sound effect by now. I'll just be back here. I'm waiting.
Well, I'll get it started. And obviously I'm not African American, so I'm not.
So why bother answering the question? And why ask this question of this panel? Unless it's going to be like some kind of guilt trip struggle session. Okay, everybody, speak. Speak for the Black population of educators.
I'm going to try to speak for everyone.
You are! You're not going to speak for everyone. No, you're right. You're not going to speak for everyone. You're going to speak for a very specific demographic who is not here in any way, shape, or form represented. But okay, go ahead.
At South Shore, we do have a significantly higher number of educators of color.
Of color. Does that mean Black? Because of color can mean a whole bunch of different things.
Almost 90% of our classified staff are staff of color.
Does that mean Black? What's the percentage of Black educators at your school? He asked about Black educators.
Close to 40% of our certificated staff are staff of color, which is almost double. Of
color? You're dodging it. What is the percentage of teachers at your school who are Black?
What Seattle schools overall is. And in talking to, my colleagues.
Your Black colleagues, or I'm not meaning to dwell on this, but there's this very specific question that's been asked, and okay.
Sometimes it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's microaggressions that are not addressed. It's equity work that lands on the shoulders of staff of color. It's the relationships that folks are struggling with that they lean on our staff of color to hold up and maintain. It's a discipline of students that gets passed on.
Microaggressions and equity work overwhelm Black teachers? And we lost one of our speakers. The other student disappeared. Okay, hopefully she comes back.
It's not being seen themselves and not having spaces that they themselves can talk amongst to support each other.
Not seeing themselves and spaces to support each other based on their skin color. Okay, so you would designate a Black educator only space in your school. A Black educator can only relate to another Black educator. Are you guys listening to yourselves right now?
And I know one of the things that we are continuing to work on here at South Shore is how to support our educators of color, whether that be our classroom teachers or our aspiring classroom teachers, or just staff who are supporting our students and our staff here. And so we have affinity spaces.
Oh, good. Affinity spaces. So segregated areas for people on the basis of their race. I mean, I know. Affinity space sounds so much more futuristic and happy and positive and everything. But let's talk brass tacks. What is an affinity space? Literally.
For our staff of color that are facilitated by outside organizations.
Wait, outside organizations facilitate segregated spaces at your school for people on the basis of their race? I get that right?
We have really pushed hard on our equity work because the work that we really need to do is with our white educators. And
okay. Well, what specific work needs to be done with your educators based on their race?
And that should not be led by our staff of color. That needs to be conversations that we have amongst ourselves on how we can do better and be better.
Right, because white educators are inherently broken and wrong and incorrect because of their skin color, and they can't be educated by the people who are outside of that. Only the foxes can tend to the foxes, and the chickens need to tend to the chickens. Keep going, dude. I'm telling you. You know, we have to keep all the whites over here and all the coloreds over there. It's just listen to yourself. You work in education, and you are advocating for the division of people in a school on the basis of their skin color, collectivizing the whites on the one hand and everybody who's not on the other, setting up affinity spaces where they can talk amongst their own kind and support one another of their own kind. Do you not see any parallels with the bad old days of this country in what you are promoting and constructing for yourself? At all? Does none of this click in your mind? Talking about systemic or structural racism, perpetuating racial divisions. Does this nothing? Nothing. No light bulbs going off? Really? Okay. All right. Keep going.
And representation does matter.
Oh, yeah.
I had an principal intern 2 years ago, and he came to South Shore, and within the first couple of days, he said, "This is such a different experience. I've been working in a school where I've been the only African-American male educator for over 15 years. And I'm coming to South Shore, and you have 10 or 15 African-American male educators in school here. Like, I feel like I can be myself."
So he was not himself at his previous place of employ? I mean, he found the school with the correct mindset for himself, I suppose. If that's how he sees people, if that's how he sees himself, then he found the right place. He's amongst fellow travelers.
So, like I said, I can't speak for everyone, but I think as white folks thinking about, and it happens very rarely in Washington, in spaces around, like, you go to a restaurant and you're the only white person in the restaurant. You go to a space and you're the only white person. And we think about all of our educators stepping into work that they go to every day, and they may be the only person of color in there. And our students just talked about that as well.
You know, I don't know if it's just me, but when I walk into a restaurant, I don't start assessing the environment on the basis of the race of the people there. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I don't first take the temperature of the room by the gradient of skin colors therein. It's just not sort of an automatic thing that I do. But apparently, it's very important to some people.
And how that can have an impact on how you show up and how you do your job, or wanting to find a different place to work.
Yeah, where you can see more people who look like you because you're uncomfortable around people who don't look like you. If a white educator said that same thing to you, if a white man had come to you and said, "Wow, my experience here is so much different. There weren't many white men at my last place of employ. There are so many other white men here. I can finally be myself." What would you think of that person? How would you assess that person's priorities in life? I have to ask.
I think adding on to that,
okay,
I think a lot of educators and like educators of color leave at like higher rates because they don't see themselves being represented among like themselves. And it's almost kind of like a mirror with students to educators. Like students feel often like really disconnected when they don't see educators like themselves that look like them. And so it's like the same with educators, that when they feel like that disconnect of not being represented and not being seen, it just also makes them feel like they don't have a voice. And
okay, so the obvious, path of least resistance solution to this is to just make sure that like only teaches like. I mean, our principle already basically laid it out, right? You have affinity spaces so that people who look like certain people can talk amongst themselves, and all the white people have to be on the other side to learn how to do better because they're obviously bad and broken. So, I mean, we have to bring back segregation, is what you're saying. I mean, that would lead to the best overall psychological, educational outcomes for everybody. If the students have teachers who look like them, they can believe that they too can become teachers, and their educational outcomes, their graduation rates, their grade point averages, all of it just goes up because like teaches like. I'm getting a great argument to bring back segregation. That's all I'm drawing from this bit by bit. And he talked about death by 1,000 cuts. Well, if you keep adding in these little factoids about the benefits of people seeing themselves in their teachers over and over and over again, why not just take it to its natural conclusion and reverse the clock on segregation in schools? I don't see why you wouldn't want that.
And that their opinion doesn't matter because they're just like so different and they don't have the same experiences as those around them. And so I just think like the way students feel is the same way like staff and educators of color feel. And so I just think it's important to address that.
So in this iteration of things, is it not the case that the opinions of of color students matters less? Right? I mean, we are dividing people up on the basis of worth, both in culture and perspectives and ideas. Some people have a more enriched perspective on the world than others, and this simply on the basis of their race. So obviously there must be a category of people that matter less, that are less nuanced in their thinking, less complex in their perspectives on the world. Or am I missing something?
Like there's just a lack of people there, which like help them like feel like they can be themselves and help them feel like they can be included.
Because being yourself is tied directly to your skin color, as we know.
Yeah, that's 100% to both of what you said. I'd like
Really? That's not encouraging since you're an adult in the room.
to add on, and I'd like to also suggest that there are some things about teaching that, of course, everyone feels the responsibility and the weight of. Centering student learning is for sure a huge part of that.
Is it? I have heard nothing to this point about educational benefit, except the implication that if you have a teacher who looks like you, you have a better graduation outcome. That's something our speaker said, our moderator said, if we want to call him a moderator, he's not moderating much, at the top of the show. But centering okay, all right, well, shall we talk about the educational value of this? What is inherently of educational value to the skin color of the teacher to the student? What quality of educator do you get on the basis of skin color inherently.
And I think, unfortunately, adding on to what Justin was talking about, I think I see too many BIPOC teachers going into the classroom for all the right reasons. They want to build community. They want to sustain relationships.
Maybe the right reason should be they want to educate their students. Shouldn't that be the first priority, is to provide a quality education? Build community, create relationships. Okay.
They want to enhance student learning.
Okay, why is that the tertiary concern? Shouldn't that be number one? Shouldn't that be your first priority as a teacher, to provide a quality education? Maybe I'm just pie in the sky, wishful thinking here, but
at the end of the day, it comes down to, how did your students score on the standardized test at the
Yes, results. It is a game of numbers. It is a game of measuring success in your educational effort. And there are only so many ways on the temporal plane that we can have evidence of this. And it is through test scores. It's by setting a standard, teaching the students, and trying to get them to achieve that standard. Especially when we talk about like academics or reading skills and literacy and so on, basic history. Have you retained the information that has been presented to you? Are you learning it? Can you apply it to other situations? Preparing students for the future. Yes. Okay, well, if not by standardized testing, how would you measure success?
They want to sustain relationships. They want to enhance student learning. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, how did your students score on the standardized test at the end of the year?
Yeah.
And that can be a gut-wrenching thing.
Yeah, it can be a gut-wrenching thing to be shown evidence that your style or your capacity or competency in education isn't succeeding. Yeah, that can be. If you're focusing on building relationships and community over getting education centered in the classroom, yeah, I suppose that could be gut-wrenching. Your entire vision of yourself is falling apart, because are you actually an educator if your students are not learning anything?
Because I would say, as I believe, our standardized tests are not the full story. And then, so I would attribute I would say that this is somewhat systemic racism, in the sense that
standardized testing is systemic racism. But implementing policies and practices in a school that divide teachers and students up on the basis of race, that's perfectly fine. Okay.
We are far too often judging our teachers on test scores that do not reflect actual student learning and don't reflect student experiences.
So what do you suggest in the alternative? I'm not being facetious when I ask that. I don't know. What alternatives to test scores would our speaker suggest be used to more accurately reflect the success of teachers and or student learning?
All of the things that you both said, and that too.
I both love and hate is a strong word, but I both love and dislike this question.
You both love and dislike this question. The question of, why do Black teachers not stay in education? Okay, you love the question, you hate the question. Why?
At the same time, because I think sometimes, in order to make progress, you have to acknowledge what is going on right here, right now, right? And to say that Black educators are not leaving the profession at a high rate would be false. But at the same time, I think what we have to totally understand, similar to what our young people have said about, being visual and seeing them, every story is unique in its own sense, right? And so, I think you wouldn't do.
I'm loving and hating this question as well, because whatever this answer is, it's all over the place already, and I don't know what it is to address it. If Okay, why? He asked you why. And in this instance, I can only assume you have an opinion rather than a direct anecdote, since you're not black. So they can't see themselves. They can't relate to anybody because people around them aren't the same race. Is that it?
Our black educators any justice to have one blanket statement said, this is the reason why.
You're right. There probably is no one reason why, because unlike what is being implied here, being a particular or being within a particular racial demographic does not make you part of a monolith. There are individual people with individual circumstances and decisions. But okay, you're right. There is no one answer. And
I think it's so important, and we kind of have it at a macro level and a micro level. You know, Mr. Hendrickson, in his building, if he has a black teacher that leaves the profession, he needs to understand what is that teacher's story on why you're leaving. It could be something, and I tell my biracial kids all the time, my own personal kids.
Your own personal kids. Wait, does that mean your children, or are you talking about what?
Sometimes everything is not something.
Sometimes everything is not something. So it could be a series of circumstances. It could be a whole bunch of different reasons. Is that what you mean? Because I'm hedging towards some Donald Rumsfeld territory of, you know, there are knowns and then there are unknown knowns, and the known knowns are unknown knowns until they're known. No.
And so I think, yes, there are, you know, systems in place that, you know, continue to kind of, you know, do not help marginalized populations, but
name one. Seriously, name one. What system is in place that does not help quote unquote marginalized population? Name one. I mean, I bet there's some out there, but give us one. No? Okay.
I just think that we need to continue, reach out. This is the hard work, and this is the work that we need to do. We need to have those individual connections with our teachers, especially our BIPOC teachers,
especially our BIPOC teachers.
One, why you're leaving, but most importantly, how can I help you right now as you're thinking about leaving? Or
okay, so if a teacher's thinking about leaving, but they're white, you don't give a rip. But if they're BIPOC, oh, now all of a sudden we have to have an inquisition as to why, and you need help, and obviously you're damaged in some way, and da-da-da-da-da. Is that it?
How can I help you right now as you're thinking about struggling, and we're all first year something, and how can I help?
So you didn't answer the question. Not that I would, I mean, it was a stupid question to ask this panel in the first place, but you didn't even answer the question. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that if I see a black teacher thinking about leaving the profession, I have to swoop in and help. Okay. Moderator. There's a word in that type. Moderate. You need to moderate.
Yeah, well, thank you for those very thoughtful answers. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone have anything you'd like to add? Some?
No, let's move on. Okay, I might have to do a part 2 on this, or maybe go extended, because I want to get to the meat of the thing. What are the policies that you guys are wanting to recommend or implement to solve for this problem? That's question number 3. We're still on question number 2.
I saw Dr. Windmill unmuted. Go ahead, Dr. Go ahead.
How's my audio? Can you hear me well?
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Well, you know, I work with our educators of color.
Educators of color. So anyone who's not white.
And hearing the experiences that they share with me sometimes can be really challenging. It's hard because typically they get discriminated or they receive this kind of different, I would say, experience from their administrators, the evaluation system.
And so how is that any different than now white educators with this non-white educator focus and elevation that everybody here is proposing. Do you see how racism does not solve racism? We just had this issue yesterday in yesterday's stream about racism conscious policies. But apparently that does not occur to our speakers here.
They get targeted. Like I have this colleague who, not from my school, but saying that her principal came to her room several times without any reason, or she doesn't know the reason. So to me, that's like, what? Why is that happening?
Oh, obviously racism, right? There's no other explanation. I don't even know what you're talking about. I doubt you're going to tell us, but the principal has come to her a couple of times. Why? I don't know. What was the principal's explanation? Is it obviously racism?
She doesn't have other colleague who is Black in her school. And I think that remains, that isolation is really critical.
Wait. Okay. We're not getting enough information here. So you have a friend who is a teacher at another school who is Black, and the principal has, come to her, criticized or something? And so obviously it's because she's Black?
We need to truly diversify, because it causes isolation.
So wait. Is the principal white? And so the solution to that problem would be to what? Get a principal who's not white, or get more teachers who aren't white so she doesn't feel alone? Would that cut down on whatever criticism or visits by the principal are occurring? But okay.
The feeling of leaving the profession when in fact it's close to their heart. It's something that very, very dear to them. They value the students. They care about the students. In fact, there is like this disparity on number of students in their classroom. So like that also, the feeling of being overburdened, because they think that they're the one who can solve the problem, right?
What? So the school system is putting more children into classrooms with teachers who aren't white as what, a punishment? Haven't you guys just been telling us that students benefit from having a teacher who's not white? Maybe they're trying to give the students the best education they have available to them. What?
Which I believe they can. However, I think that is inequitable.
Oh.
So discrimination bias is very rampant.
Oh, no, I believe you. I believe you that discrimination bias is rampant. Discrimination bias in favor of and against people on the basis of their race is rampant in this setup you guys have been advocating for and performing.
And it's because our I would say the school leaders also need to have diversity.
Oh,
if
yeah.
we don't have diverse leaders, then how can we make correct policies and decisions for our students and educators?
Exactly. That's why our principal in the center square needs to step down. He's in the exact wrong place. He needs to, of everybody on this panel, he's in a position of greatest authority over students. And he knows that he's part of the problem. Why does he still have his job? I don't know.
Who are diverse. So the representation should start also from leadership.
Right. Describe to me a non-diverse leader. What qualifies someone as being non-diverse? And then what filter do you want to put up in order to solve for that problem?
The working conditions is make them really difficult, because instead of supporting them, they don't get supported. They are overburdened. They put all the Black students in the classroom. So to me, that is really hard and challenging.
Whoa. Wait, what? They put all the Black students in the classroom. Whose classroom? The classroom with the teacher who's also Black? Well, isn't that exactly what you guys are promoting? If you have a philosophy that says students of a particular color benefit most from having a teacher of their same color, Why wouldn't you put them all in one place? Did I miss something?
How many IEPs, how many meetings do they have to have compared to other teachers who don't have the same amount of students who are Black?
Wait. The students themselves are causing more work for the teacher because of their skin color? Did I miss something here? I'm gonna have to go longer than an hour and a half on this. I might go 2 hours. I can't just let this drop. I'm backing up a little bit because maybe I missed something. Was she saying that? Hold on, let me just let it run. Come
on. The working conditions is make them really difficult because instead of supporting them, they don't get supported. They are overburdened. They put all the Black students in the classroom. So to me, that is really hard and challenging. How many IEPs, how many meetings do they have to have compared to other teachers who don't have the same amount of students who are Black? And those are some of the reasons. There are so many more, but I just want to address that.
Okay, this is, I don't even know what to say at this point. They're arguing for educational segregation on the one hand, but apparently once you do that, somehow simply on the basis of the skin color of the students in your classroom creates more work for a teacher than other teachers. Okay, so Black students cause more problems? What?
Right.
Can we move on, please?
Again, I think everyone brought up like all the points that are true.
Did they? Did they really?
I would just add to this that being an educator is a job.
Okay, being an educator is a job. I mean, it can be a job. I could educate somebody on how to do a live stream and not be compensated for it. It could be just a favor. It could be just like knowledge I'm passing on. Educator does not need necessarily. I'm getting into semantics. I'm an English major. It's my thing.
And if we take some big, broad paint strokes, and I agree with Larry that we can't really do that on a case-by-case basis.
You're right. If you're taking a big, broad brush, you're not talking about case-by-case. You're generalizing.
But if we were to try to bubble that up a bit.
What?
The reasons people leave their jobs
yes.
are often about management and often about not feeling impact.
Or they're not making enough money, or they're just dissatisfied, or they're moving out of state, or a family member is sick and they need to dedicate more time to taking. The reasons could be numerous. Like you say, you're making assumptions about the condition of somebody's life or mindset on the basis of their race. What does that make you?
Are not seeing impact. So when we look or talk about educators of color in particular, like that cultural context we were talking about earlier exists between an educator of color and their leadership as well, management.
And management is completely disconnected?
Feeling the impact or even the extra burden that Dr. Emil was talking about, like that's very real. If you're the only in a school building and the kids of color are coming to you, it's great that they have you, but that's a lot of work.
Who is encouraging that mindset? Everyone on this panel is telling the world, and by extension, the students in their periphery, that race matters. That race is a personal connection. That race is a foundationary element of relationships. So if all of the quote unquote students of color are flocking to the one teacher of color in the school, that is the fruit of your labors. I don't know what to tell you. If only there was some idea out there, if only there was some philosophy where people were assessed on the basis of the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Golly, wouldn't it be something if we just did away with assessing everyone on aesthetics first and foremost? Boy, what a weird and wonderful future that could have been.
That's a lot of emotional labor. That's a lot of labor. The death by 1,000 cuts from Justin, I completely agree with that. I'm obviously not a black-bodied person.
Obviously, right? But you are a person of color, right? I mean, you fall within the demographic that knows everything about everything at all times and has a completely unique experience, right? Thank you, you ridiculous lunatic, so much. Don't be racist. You are a teacher. If that's the actual, quasi lyric to a song, I don't know how to sing it. Don't be racist. You are a teacher. I don't know. Is there a tune that's supposed to go to? Either way, thank you, lunatic, very much. That's very generous of you. This is going all over the place. I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I waited. I can't wait to see where this goes next.
And I will 100% acknowledge the fact that Black-bodied folks tend to have more microaggressions.
Oh, tell me more about those black-bodied folks.
Experience more microaggressions, experience more aggressions.
Okay, go on.
On a day-to-day basis. And those things are cumulative. And I think in the world, especially that we live in today, where we're under the weight of all this kind of cultural trauma.
It's either one of two things. It's either Trump or George Floyd.
That's continuing to happen and continuing to accumulate on top of our shoulders, and the extra labor that's then asked on a job-to-job basis, particularly for our Black educators, maybe asked to take on DEI work in their building or, fill in the blank here.
Yeah, and why is that? I mean, do you really want a white guy running your DEI program? What does that say about an organization?
That's not sustainable.
Well, yeah, I know, right? I mean, if you have a white guy running your DEI program, he obviously does not have any experiences that would translate themselves to the marginalized and the diverse populations of people of color. So you can't have a white guy running your DEI program. It's just not permissible, right? So you have to have someone there who's not white. But of course, that becomes the emotional and otherwise labor that you're putting on the shoulders of a person of color. To have to take on that work, to do that work, to have to educate others. You don't want to educate others you shouldn't have to educate people. They should just know these things and stuff and things and stuff. And also race is really, really important, but it's not that important. If you make it important, then you burden somebody with it. But then, can you see where I'm going here? A little bit, maybe? I don't know.
Thanks to, I think, Valerie in the chat, you mentioned why isn't there a Black representative of an educator on this panel?
That is a very good question, Valerie in the chat. That is a very good question. Why would you pose this question to a panel of people who are not Black? They're just going to have to guess, right? But here's the thing. Even if you had a panel that had a Black educator on it, what could that person say other than their own opinion anyway? Because they can't speak to it for everybody. Why did someone leave that profession? Based on the demographic they fall into. Why don't you ask that individual person? Heaven forfend you do not practice racial identitarianism in assuming to know the experience of someone on the basis of their skin color. No. Let's just do that as this this panel of non-Black participants?
Like, I think that's an indicator. It's definitely an indicator, because
an indicator of what? That everybody on this panel is racist, or the person organizing this panel is racist, or asking that question is racist?
There's the population also, like, is so small. I think if there were a Black educator on this panel,
yes,
the likelihood that they are asked to be on a lot of panels on this topic, again, that's labor.
Oh, that's labor. Oh, okay. So you have a question specifically aimed at trying to answer, why are Black educators getting out of the business more than anybody else? And so in order to have an answer to that question, you don't want to ask a person who falls within that demographic, because that would be labor, and they shouldn't have to represent their entire race. But then if you don't have representation on the panel, then you have a bunch of non-Black people trying to assess the experiences of Black people whom they can't relate to, obviously, because they're not Black. So what does one do? How does one succeed in this quandary? I appreciate our speaker kind of very clearly underlining this problem. How do you maneuver? You don't want to possibly burden a person of a particular race with asking a question that pertains, at least in this context, to that race, because that would be, I don't know, labor?
So it's all a huge system that's interlocking here. That
so if I asked a question about the experiences of Asian women, would you just not answer because that's not labor you wish to participate in? Or am I burdening you with asking a question that pertains directly to the demographics you fall in? What exactly is the etiquette here? What is the racial etiquette of asking questions?
We need to continue to be aware of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Thank you again for your thoughtful answers. Yes. Let's move into solutions.
Yes.
So what policy, practice, or cultural shifts in school districts and school buildings could work and have worked to better attract and retain educators of color? What can we do?
And cue the crickets.
And what have we done that works?
I can start with this. Oh.
Why? You're a student. You're not a policymaker. You're not an administrator. But okay, go ahead. I mean, you're Johnny on the spot.
You want to go, Wyatt?
No, it's fine. You go ahead, Vindia.
Okay.
Yeah, Wyatt's been awfully quiet. Quiet Wyatt. Oh man, that'd make a great garbage pail kids card. Where he's like a rocker, except maybe he's like got his mouth sewn up or something. Quiet Wyatt. But yeah, there you go. Can you imagine that for a second? Garbage pail kid, Quiet Wyatt. No, all right, never mind. Somebody out there is having a laugh.
So I was just gonna start off with kind of like a personal thing.
Okay.
So like as an active member of like the Olympia High School Equity Committee and like the respective subcommittees, I've been able to kind of get a better understanding of like equity related issues, and like have been like directly equipped to like help with like tools to fight against these issues.
Okay, I will accept your credentials as a active expert. Proceed.
And so as like an underrepresented minority and like in a majority white school, I found a home in the STAND Club at our school, which stands for Students Together Advocating for Nonviolence and Diversity.
Whoa. Students Together Acting for Nonviolence and Diversity. What? Why not just do the nonviolence part? Okay.
And on the Olympia Equity Committee, and where we like have been able to like organize rallies against like proposed district budget cuts, and encourage like equity-based kind of discussions in homerooms.
Like what? How does this encourage or create more teachers of color at your school?
And conversations in classrooms about like things like microaggressions and how students can help stand up for themselves. But something that kind of really stopped me at the beginning from getting involved in these clubs was not seeing educators like myself, not like myself, but like educators that look like me.
Yeah, that seems to be the running theme here. You hesitated in getting involved in something because there weren't the right races in there. What does that make you? Thank you, big time. We are expected to obey. Our children are presented with a false dichotomy in public school. You are either racist or an ally. We are not supposed to take our own side. When is enough enough? I don't know. I don't know. I've been hearing this stuff for 7 years. I've been covering stuff like this for 7 years, and it doesn't seem to be abating. There doesn't seem to be any hesitation when saying things that are demonstrably divisive, demonstrably discriminatory, and demonstrably racist, especially in an educational setting. And you have grown adults, people who are old enough to have knowledge beyond the social media age, advocating for segregation in schools. They don't want to call it that. They don't want to use that terminology because even they know that that's wrong, and yet that is exactly what they want to have happen. And they are valuing race above everything else. And they are encouraging this thinking in students. Right? They are the adults on this panel are validating what the current speaker is saying. That she is correct in not feeling comfortable in a place where she doesn't see people with her skin color. She is correct to want to populate the environment around her with people who look like her. That is the first and foremost priority. And it's a good thing. And it's demonstrably beneficial to think that way, to be that way, to act that way. It's not racist. It's not racially discriminatory. It's not dehumanizing one and elevating someone else on an element that has nothing to do with their character or merit. No. That is the correct way of thinking. I mean, this is actually kind of interesting, at least in the case of the two students. You have two kids who have grown up in this kind of environment and ideology, and they are the results that are, coming about from what the adults in the room are saying. And then they are then as well reaffirming to the adults that they're correct because they're like, oh, and a child shall lead them. You want to talk about an echo chamber, a poisonous echo chamber.
In those kind of clubs, but I was able to see students that look like me, which really attracted me to those clubs. And then after we kind of organized our events and things like that, we got a lot of people of color from the communities, and we got letters of people saying like, thank you for doing this. Like it helped my kids, and it helped me want to like pursue like building like equity, like committees like in schools and things like that.
Imagine if this was a white girl saying this. I didn't want to join that club because I didn't see a teacher who looked like me. But I decided to join anyway because there were plenty of students who looked like me. I mean, I bring up that reversal because it's necessary. And it would be amazing to me if our speaker right now, our student, saw a white girl saying the exact same words, word for word, script for script, as she was, and what would she think of that white girl? What would she call that way of thinking, I wonder?
And like we had teachers that were like crying to us and like being like, thank you so much for like doing this.
Crying?
And I think it was like really powerful to see like a lot of people that were coming to us were like attracted to seeing that students were doing better for themselves. And it helped like a lot of people of color want to say like, I want to help these students have something that I didn't have.
Because of what they look like.
And help them like work with each other to build a community so that it can not only help them, but help me as an educator and things like that. So I just thought it was like to see that. And I think that was something that just really attracted people to like our school and like build clubs and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. Internally, intentionally racialized, segregated clubs. Great.
Yeah, I really do agree with what Vindhya said. But I think like one thing that can help like retain educators of color.
That's not the question. Well, no, I guess it is. No, sorry, I was hearkening back to the previous question about why do Black teachers leave? Okay, how do you retain educators of color?
Is representation and decision making.
Representation decision making. Okay, well, this is the first, at least actionable or articulated policy. What is that?
From a personal standpoint, there aren't really many people of color on our school board or on our administrative staff. And I think that's one thing that can really help push this change. It's just having that representation. And
how do you achieve that representation, Wyatt? What would you do? What would you put into place to achieve representation?
Help them feel more included and just respected overall.
How? No. Okay. Well, I don't expect as much from him because he's a student. He's not actually in charge of things. So, all right. Now the two students have spoken. Let's have the adults. I'm particularly interested to hear what the principal has to say, our center square, since he's the only one of this entire collective who's in a position to make those kind of decisions, presumably. Crickets.
Some quick solutions. If you look at our Spokane Public Schools website right now and you click jobs, there are about 7 or 8 look-fors that we have in Spokane Public Schools.
Ooh, look-fors. Okay, what do you look for?
And one of them, the first one is eagerly embrace differences in our community to ensure all have a place and belonging.
Eagerly. That doesn't actually address the aesthetic issue.
A desire to work and support a diverse community of learners.
That doesn't have anything to do with race.
And so it is not the magic bullet, but the fact that we at Spokane Public Schools up front, we're not looking for technical skills. We're looking for good people that are going to embrace diversity.
Wait. We're not looking for technical skills. We're looking for people to embrace diversity. What?
We do have our equity policy in place, and so I think we all know in education, and for those of us outside that work outside of the school system, you get into a policy, it increases the likelihood of something happening.
Wait, okay, I need to take a moment here, but also for the fact that big time. Thank you so much again. Have you seen Michigan is bending over backwards to hire black male teachers? The belief is men in school will help direct black boys' behavior, almost as if dad's not in the home is an issue. Crazy. I've seen amazing things by public schools without any hesitation. I mean, setting aside even our speakers here, I got a video on my channel. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's something like To Affinity and Beyond or something else. I got a couple on there, but there's one in particular. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I remember the thumbnail. It's got a picture of the state of Minnesota on it. And it's a public school, a public like elementary school in Minnesota, where you have one of the teachers and the principal on a Zoom call grinning their brains out over getting ready to implement racial affinity groups in their school. They're so happy. They're so excited. It's disturbing. It's really disturbing. And the just like our technical person on this panel said earlier, it's like, well, the teacher, Dr. Windmill. That's right, Dr. Windmill. She was saying that like black students inherently cause more problems. Like, what are you trying to solve? And how does this make any sense in a country that went through the civil rights movement, Brown v. Board of Education, on and on and on and on, and we've come full circle back around again to the bad old days? Okay. Anyway, sorry, I got off track there. It's just I am overwhelmed with like WTF on everything that's happening right now.
And more kind of grassroots, some really cool things that we're doing in Spokane Public Schools and that I'm helping lead the work on, creating K-12 grow your own teacher and educator pipeline, going from...
That doesn't define race, though. Where we're talking about how do you diversify the educators? You've already defined diversity as not white. How do you bring in non-white teachers? You don't do it by just saying, I want you to have the sentiment of diversity. That's not going to cut it, is it? Thank you again, Big Time. Maybe an idea for a stream. Pittsburgh is now teaching anti-racism to black math teachers because math be racist. Oh, and I've done plenty of videos on racist math equity. Oh man, you have. Oh yeah, the inequities of 2 + 2 = 4. No, I'm not saying I wouldn't do one on Pittsburgh specifically, but yeah, math equity and racist math. Look over my playlist on my channel, Curriculum of Fear. And there's at least a handful of videos on there talking about different movements or different organizations pushing the idea of racist math and, based on the color of the skin of the student, then the math is unfair and so on and so forth. Yeah, no, I know it's out there, but I'll take a look. Pittsburgh, huh? Pittsburgh school districts. All right, I'll take a look.
Teaching clubs in the elementary school, having direct conversations with middle schools, and having our career and cultural learning time have an education focused, and restarting our education teaching academy, making sure that we focus not just on the students who really, really want to get into teaching, but also focusing on kids who might be thinking about teaching. And if you think about this K-12 pipeline right now.
Okay, what does any of that have to do with bringing in teachers of specific skin tones? What? I mean, that is the goal here. That is the stated goal from the presentation's title. What specifically are you doing to bring in teachers who are not white?
7% of our students, our teachers in Spokane Public Schools, identify as teachers of color.
7% identify as. Can I identify as a teacher of color? I mean, if I just say so, does that make it so? I mean, race is just a social construct after all.
Right. But when about 40 to 44, I believe, right in that ballpark, students identify as students of color, there is kind of some demographics there that say that we have some intentional work on tapping on the shoulder those who are really interested, but also tapping on the shoulder those that could be that visual representation of our kids in Spokane Public Schools. We can increase the likelihood of having a workforce that looks like our kids, and also partnering with our local universities to make sure that when we get them to that college doorstep, support does not stop.
Visual representation. Tap those kids on their shoulders to become educators because of what they look like, to increase visual representation. Even kids who aren't interested in becoming teachers, let's encourage them towards a career because of what they look like, so they can increase the visual representation. All right.
Because we cannot forget that getting the door is not enough. Getting to the door, walking them in, making sure they have a meal, making sure that the water's turned on is the best way to kind of get our kids back into our system and help our populations.
Help our populations. As long as they have the right visual representation. Okay. I want to hear from the principal. If I have nothing else before I end this stream, I want to hear from the principal on this question. I might jump to it if he doesn't speak up. Come on, dude. You're the principal.
You're going to go ahead.
He was about to.
I'll fire away real quick. So okay. I think the pipeline is really important. And there's the official pipeline, and Seattle has done a really good job in the past however many years of creating that pipeline that can start as soon as elementary, middle, and just getting kids exposed to what a career in education may look like.
Okay, so you guys are just talking about the future generations. You're not talking about, outreach right now for teachers who are already teachers, or to schools with people who are coming out of there with educational degrees or something like that. You're talking about taking the children and training them towards a specific career based on their skin color. You're setting up for the long game. Is that what you're talking about? Because I thought it was like, right now, in the current moment, in the current year, we need more teachers in our school that look a particular way. How do we find them and hire them? But your strategy is to start from the ground up and bet on the future. Okay.
Through job fairs, through conversations, But in high school, we have students who come from the Skills Center who are interested, and they actually shadow a teacher for a while. They get that opportunity. And from there, I've actually hired a couple of young folks into classified positions to start.
Classified position. I don't know what that means. I'm not being joking about it. They've used that term a couple of times now. Classified positions. What is a classified position? Because to me, that sounds like something that has to be kept secret, but I'm assuming that means something else in this context. What is a classified position?
They can start as a classified, which is an IA, support staff. And then from there, we have.
Oh, so classified is just not a teacher. It supports. Is that what that is? I don't know. I'm confused. Okay.
A Rising Educator program where they can start to access college for free. Most of the times. And right now here at South Shore, we have 3 educators, all folks of color. 2.
Oh, okay. They're all folks of color.
Black males and a black female.
Yeah, okay. So names unimportant. Demographic, yes.
Who are working on their masters through the UW, through either the Seattle Teacher Program residency that Mary Beth represents, or another UW program. And so as a school leader, one of my tasks is to remove some of those obstacles. So that's allowing them opportunities to still keep a full-time job, because they have to have income coming in while they're working on their masters. They get release time on Thursdays and Fridays, and STR has arranged for subs to come through that they're paid for, so they fill their positions on Thursday and Friday for them.
Wow, there's a whole bunch of state money supplementing someone's career because of their skin color specifically, or I'm confused. So the state is paying for substitutes to take over for these classified employees so that they can focus on their jobs and their education, which the state is paying for, I guess. That sounds like a sweet deal.
And like I said, there's just lots of ways to support them along that journey. I found that cohort model specifically at a school like this has been really helpful. You're not going at it alone. You have several other educators who are working alongside you in a similar sort of way.
Educators, any other modifiers you want to put on that? Because I've been told by somebody that educators can't relate one to the other just on the basis of being a fellow educator. Just checking.
And then shoring up our hiring processes, making sure that our hiring teams are diverse and they represent our students and our staff and our community.
And what does that do to the hiring process? Because it sure sounds like, at least by implication, that you are making sure the right kind of biases are in place in the hiring process.
So that we, as Larry said, there are a lot of things I can teach you. Those are technical pieces. What I can't teach you is to love kids, is to love community, is to love learning, to show up with joy. Those are things that you can build on, but you're going to either have that or you're not going to have it. And it's not enough to say, I like working with kids. You have to love your kids. When that goes beyond a 7:30 to 2:30 sort of job, this is a profession of love. It's the hardest, most rewarding profession in the world, and it's not for everyone. So opportunities there. Also through our City Year partnership that we've had for several years, I've been able to have folks who've been City Year for a year get an experience for this. And I've hired about 3 or 4 of those folks into.
And you hired them. Was there any other deliberation in your hiring decisions? Just wondering.
To either teaching positions or classified positions because they love the community. They love what we're doing here.
And I have to ask, what did they look like?
And so there are ways to do this. And just like any sort of business, if you're going to sit on your hands and hope that people are going to knock down your door coming to work for you, that doesn't work so well. You have to go out and you have to actively pursue people. You have to go to job fairs. You have to go to community centers and talk to people who are already in the community and are coaching. And I've actually hired one of my former 2nd grade students just this year as a classified, which ages me a little bit, but it's been amazing. And if she likes it this year and she wants to do it, I'm already talking to her dad. Like, I can help figure out a way to get her in a program so that she can pursue a teaching career. So there are.
What is the color of your student? I need to know this to find out if that potential teacher is going to be the most beneficial to the students of the future, and not just going to be part of the 90% that is causing so much of a problem in Washington State. I'm not asking because I'm curious. I'm asking because these are the rules you guys have set up.
There are ways to do this, but we have to be active in making it happen.
Okay, guys, I'm going to call it here. I think I've had enough. I think maybe you've had enough. I don't know. There's something like 20 minutes left in this panel discussion. So just as with yesterday, if you'd like to have a part 2 of this at some point, let me know in the comments if you're seeing this in the future. I'll take a minute here for you guys in the chat, and then we will conclude. Advocates Diaboli, if you need a diverse hiring team to hire diverse people, how do you hire the diverse hiring team in the first place? I don't know. Chicken and egg. Don't know. Devil Fruit Zero, you don't need to know anything in Portland. My 3-year-old niece is qualified for a high school diploma. I mean, I could believe it. I mean, what are educational standards anyway, but just, oppressive, sexist, racist, systems of the past that need to be torn down. And I've been told over and over again that the wisdom of second graders is enough to define whether or not someone should go into transitional surgery, or hormone therapy and a whole bunch of other things. Kids are getting smarter every day. Lexi Mads, I think nursing is the best job in the world if we're using love and care as measurements. It all depends. It all depends. I had teachers growing up that I felt like were secondary mothers in a way, and not in some creepy kind of context, but somebody who actually cared about the welfare of their students, knew their names, treated them like adults, talked to them like, Mr. this and Miss that and that kind of thing. And followed up. I had a principal, my elementary school principal. I tell you what, one of the nicest ladies you could ever ask to meet. And she cared about all the kids that came through her door, like a tough love mother. She was strict, but she was fair. She was kind, but if you got out of line, she let you know it. And she remembered it. I ran into her years and years and years after the fact. And I went up to her, and I thought I was going to have to remind her who I was. But as soon as she saw me, she's like, "Well, hey there, Mr. Scribe." And I was like, "Hi." And it blew my mind. It really depends on the person. You can bring those elements to any profession. All depends on your personality. But anyway, I'm gonna stop here because my voice is starting to give out, and I've gone half an hour over my usual time, and I don't want to bore anybody anymore. But I am curious to know what you guys thought about this, both for my own edification, but also because of the algorithm. Yes, a couple of housekeeping things before I conclude. First and foremost, if you have not already, and you think it might be a good idea, hit the like button. That apparently helps out with things. Also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit that bell and leave a comment afterwards if you have anything extra to say or anything that I missed in the chat. I apologize I couldn't get to everybody. A couple more things. First and foremost, I have a Discord. You know about Discord? Well, you can join the Discord. I happen to have pre-prepared a link, and the link is in the chat. And all I have to do is click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you have to give the secret word. The secret word tells me and my moderators that you actually watch the stream. And today's secret word is crickets. There you go. Took me a second. Almost matched it for myself. Crickets. Just say crickets, and we'll all know what you're talking about. Additionally, tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, you can find me on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel. on the show called The Shit List with Tom Connors and the rest of the gang as we go over our top 5 selections. I guess it changed. It was supposed to be World War II movies, and now it's going to be female action characters or female heroes in honor of the Marvels that just came out. We're going to have our top 5 favorite female heroes from movies, as in characters. So that's going to be tonight on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And you can find me here Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence, where I take a look at off-brand TED Talks that sometimes cover similar subjects as to what we've seen today. Also, before I forget, at the top of the chat box, if you haven't already, please take a look at those GoFundMes for Grisella, Maddie, and Angry Illinoisian. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. Please share those out on social media. With that, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved and so contributory to the conversation that you have very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the fundraisers, thank you guys so much for your generosity. It is very much appreciated. Everyone, have a good rest of your Sunday and weekend. Veterans, even though it's now afterwards, thank you so much for your service. It is very much appreciated by those of us who enjoy living in a country that has the freedoms that we enjoy, and enjoy, even when people like those on our panel are trying to take us backwards bit by bit. It's still a free country for the moment. And everyone, I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.